This is Boonslock, our garage. And tonight we have something planned a little bit different. Step away from the layout, step away from some scenery for tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some weathering. So what we have is this little 71 917K, and we're going to go ahead and weather it. Now, weathering is when you take something that's all nice and clean and shiny and pristine, and we make it look like it's gone through a race, right? So we need to add some grime to it. We need to add some rubber to it. Pretty much, we need to add some stuff to it. So let's do this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this. So first thing is we need our victim. And our victim tonight is this little guy. He's a 1971 Porsche 917K, or Longtail. And I believe this guy is from the 71 Le Mans. I believe it was the Le Mans winner for that race. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to go ahead and weather it out. And what I mean by weathering is we're going to take this car and make it look like it's gone through a race. So we're going to get some rubber transfer onto the backs of the fenders and the backs of the quarters. We're going to have some of the rubber BBs where they hit in the front. We're going to a little bit of that grime and everything else all throughout it. We'll get down in this area where we have our fuel our fuel lid at. We'll go ahead and get some gas transfer onto the side of it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make this thing look like it's been through a race, right? So also we need to go ahead and mask off our windshield and make it look like the windshield's been working and, just, some cool stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side. And I have a couple other cars that I've done here recently. And what I've been doing is a job for a gentleman for this car and a few others that are going to be weathered out. And I thought, what's the perfect time to do a video on weathering is when I'm weathering a car. So let me go ahead. I'll grab a couple more and kind of give you an idea. So what we have here is a car that's, right from the factory. Now, this is a Fly. Now, this is the 1973 IROC series, or Race of Champions series, and it's the 911 that was driven by Phil DiPaldi. So this car has all been weathered, and this is what I consider a mid-level weather. So what I mean by that is that my kind of rule of thumb as far as how I judge it myself is I have 3 different levels. So a light weathering would be a race that's, say, an hour to, say, 4 hours, right? And that mid-level would be from like a 4-hour race to an 8-hour race. And a heavy weathering would be your 24-hour races, would be from that, the 8 hours to on up. So like the 12 hours in the 24-hour races. So this is what I would consider a mid-level weather. And what we have is we have our transfer on the side. We have our rubber transfer. You can see the little BBs and stuff on the side where the rubber comes up and hits. Get all that grime and everything else. We have it around the hood. There's a little bit on the roof. And, it just kind of gives it that little extra bit of realism. So when it's sitting on your layout, it doesn't look like a brand new showroom car. It looks like it's gone around your layout a few times. So, here's one that's going to be like this, the mid-level. So I'll always go ahead and set this off to the side here. And I'll grab 2 more that I've done heavy weathering on. Now, again, heavy weathering, my rule of thumb is we're looking at 8 hours to a 24-hour race. So this is a 98 Porsche GT1. Again, it was Le Mans, I believe first place in 98. And it's the Mobil oil car. and you can see the difference between a mid-level to a heavy. Okay, mid-level, we can still see the coloring real well with the rims and whatnot. A heavy, it's heavy, you know. In person, you still can see the gold, but it's, you know, it's heavy. So again, on the sides and everything, it's a lot more of a buildup. You can tell that the car's been racing for a lot longer. So if we go around to the front, we can see again how the grime built up onto the car, and our windshield, obviously. And we have our transfer as far as fuel. Down here where the fuel tanks are at, there's a little bit of fuel spillage that comes into the back. And these are all different things that you just kind of, you know, when you're doing this, you're thinking, you know, what's this car going to look like if it's been on the track for that long? So this is an example of heavy weathering. We can see in the back as far as the exhaust and the buildup in the back, you know, it's kind of darkened everything out. So go ahead and set this guy down. And we have one more. And this is a 911 Rsr Porsche. I believe this is a Carrera car. And again, this is another form of heavy weathering. And you can see again how we have this transfer on the sides and whatnot. You know, our wheels, again, these were silver wheels. They're pretty much black. If you're looking at it in person, you still can see the silver, but you know, it's pretty grimy. If we look at the front, you know, again, we have our transfer in the back. In the front, we have all our little BBs as far as our rubber transfer onto that, our windshield, a little bit of streaking as far as with the grime coming up and coming off the windshield and dripping across the roof. And, you know, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, it really, you know, it puts that little extra personal touch onto your car. So, and then the back. So I think it's about time that we make this little 917 join the grimy club. So when we come back, we'll go ahead and get started on that guy. So we're gonna get started on this, but I do have one more car that I need to complete in this lot. So I thought originally that I was just gonna go ahead and show this, but we're gonna show two cars at the same time. Now they're both gonna get the same type of weathering, but we're gonna have the mid-level on both these cars. And one of the reasons why I want to go ahead and show this Rahman's Porsche at the same time, which is, again, it's the Le Mans car in '87, is that this has white wheels. This has black wheels, right? So when I'm doing the weathering, it's not going to show up as much on these black as well. It's going to show up on the white. So I thought, you know, after kind of doing that clip and looking, I thought, you know what, I've got to do both these cars, so we might as well do them at the same time and put them on the same video. So we're going to do this 917 and we're going to do this 962C. And so let's get started on these. Let's go ahead and let's start on our 917. So we'll take this Rothmans and we'll go ahead and set him off to the side, and we'll concentrate on this 917. Now, what I like to do is do my masking first, okay? So what I mean by masking is that I'm gonna go ahead and mask off the front windshield so it looks like the wipers on it. Other thing that I wanna do is go ahead and rotate this car over, and I wanna go ahead and mask off the majority of the chassis from the bottom. One of the reasons why I like to do that is I want to go ahead and protect the braids. I want to go ahead and protect the motor that's exposed, the electric motor, and I just don't want a bunch of buildup on the underside of this car. I want it to, you know, you want it to make it look nice. You don't want, you know, this thing to be pitted from top to bottom. For me, I personally like to have the chassis clean. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and start on the windshield. Now, what I have is just a real light masking tape, and this stuff's real thin. You can use a heavier stuff. You could use just a regular type of, you know, masking, but I have this lighter stuff that works really nice. So first thing we need to do is go ahead and get this onto the windshield. So we have our little wiper here, and this wiper's kind of loose. You know, some wipers are you know, they're on there real well. So with that, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take an X-Acto and just go ahead and place it on the underside of this and just lift it up lightly, and then take our tape and work our tape up underneath here. So once we get it up there, just go ahead and set it down, and we want to get that down here. That windshield wiper's really loose. Might have to tighten that up for them. So what we got here is we got our windshield wiper, and we got that mask. Now, what I like to do also is go ahead and cut a little piece of wood or a toothpick and keep it about the same size of what your wiper is, okay? Now, this guy it's got a long arm onto it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take another little toothpick here, and we're just gonna figure out what our distance is and just go ahead and snap that guy off, so we have an idea of where this windshield's gonna go. So next thing is to grab a pen. I've got a black Sharpie here, and what I'm gonna do is go ahead and mark this up on top, so at the peak of our windshield or our wiper, and then I want to bring this down off to the side. This gets tricky sometimes. So bring it down to the side and go ahead and put a mark right there. Can't really see it. There we go. Bring one over on this side. Right here. Put a mark. Now what we want to do is, well, we're kind of nice because this does move, so we get kind of an idea of where our marks are at. It looks like the way this thing transfers out, it actually is right there. So what we want to do now is go ahead and connect our dots. Now, you don't want to go straight, you want it to have a little bit of a bow to it, so it looks like a wiper, and come down here to the sides. Let's make sure we're, yeah, because it kind of falls back that way. So we'll bring it down here, and then we got the upper arc, okay? So now we got the upper arc, we'll work on this lower arc. So bottom of our wiper is right in here, and then if we bring this guy over, say right in here, we've got that. Now what we have here is the other portion of that arc. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and pull this tape back off. You gotta be careful, you don't want to mess anything up. So get this guy off of there. Set him there. And then what we'll simply do is just connect our dots. So we have our lines, and we'll just connect it just like so. And then we have the path of our windshield wiper. Okay? So now what we need to do is go ahead and take an X-Acto knife. Let me tap that. And simply just go ahead and cut this out. And what we'll end up doing once we get this cut out is that we'll transfer that guy back onto the windshield. Now I have our path of our windshield all cut out, so what we need to do is go ahead and take this and transfer it onto our windshield. So what I'm going to do is take this wiper, since it is a little bit loose, and I'm going to move it down off to the side over here, and I'm going to line this edge up with the actual wiper blade. So if we get that right here on the edge, and then we can mask off the path of that windshield wiper. So we get that right there. There we go. Now we have the path of our windshield wipers all masked off. So when we go ahead and spray this, that area won't have any grime on it. When you peel it off, it'll look like your windshield wiper's been moving. So now we have that. Now we need to go ahead and rotate over onto the underside of this, and we'll go ahead and mask this all off. Go ahead and rotate this over, and we need to go ahead and mask the underside of this. So one of the things you might want to take a look at is if your car has any antennas up on top. Just kind of, I've been down this road before. So make sure that if you have mirrors, if you have any antennas, take caution to that, because I'll bring this guy back down, this RSR. It has these whip antennas on the top, and if you just carelessly go ahead and put it over, there's a good chance you might bust these guys off. So a little FYI, you know, learn from my mistakes. So this guy doesn't have any windshield wipers up, or any windshield wipers. It doesn't have any antennas up on top or any, you know, mirrors hanging off onto the side. So we're pretty good. Even so, just go ahead and take a cloth, and we'll go ahead and set this over. Now, if it does have antennas, so might as well cover this for you guys, because you might be doing a car that has antennas. If you have like 2-inch tape, or maybe you have some type of donut or something, go ahead and set that down. Then you can take your antennas, and it can go right into the inside of that, and you're not going to knock them off. Okay, so this works really good, and it saves your antennas. So set this guy back off. Get this over here. Put that back down, and we'll grab this, put that there. So now let's go ahead and mask the underside of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and take regular masking tape, and what I like to do is to go ahead and mask this a little bit over onto the tires, okay, and leave a little bit of an edge right here on the side, okay. Why I do that is sometimes on some of the chassis, they hang down just a little bit. Let's see here. Porsche hangs down a little bit. You can see right here on the edge, it actually has a little bit of the pan down here on the side, okay? So if you mask it off right onto this edge, when you do your airbrush work, it won't be all shiny. It'll blend in a little bit better. You know, who knows? You might like to drive your car with your head down on the track, you know. Sometimes it's, you know, who knows? But I like to just go ahead and leave that little bit of an edge. Just, I don't know, it just makes it look better, I think. But I'll set that guy off. But we'll go ahead and mask this over here. Now on the back side of this, we have our gear, and we have this rear end assembly. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it like so, and mask right up to the edge of the rear end. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make sure that I go around our braid in the front, again keeping that edge around the perimeter. So we have that. I'll go ahead and mask this. Bring that down through. Right here, we'll turn the tape and go like so. So now that is sealed. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take some 2-inch I'm just going to make sure that this is sealed up. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't want any overspray getting on any of our electronics. And there's a little bit of a seam right here, so I'd rather just kind of be on the side of caution, and just makes a little bit nicer job. So go ahead and get that there. Now, I pointed out that gear that was right down here on the side. Now, what we can do is take a little bit of tape, and we'll just split that down. And what I'll do is I'll just stick this tape right down inside here, and then move it over. And what this will do is protect the gears from any type of paint that gets onto them. So now that the bottom is all masked, our windshield's all masked, now what we need to do is start our weathering process. We're ready to go ahead and start our weathering process. So the first thing we need to do is to go ahead and start weathering all our body seams, okay? So what I like to do is I use an acrylic, and this is a higher end acrylic. You have different grades of acrylic paint. Why I like to use an acrylic is it's a water base, okay? The other thing is it gives me a little bit longer working time, okay? Now, this is some stuff called deco art, and it actually, as it dries, it starts to really bite into the surface, okay? And when it cures out. This is the same type of acrylic that they use on, you can use it on plates, you can use it on all sorts of stuff, and it's very durable, and it actually bites right in, okay? Again, it is water-based, and I'll go into one of the reasons why I like to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on all of our body seams. So where the hood is at, where any of these little guys that where it has any type of edge, we're going to need to go ahead and use this. Now, what I'll do is just go ahead and take this off. And this is just, it's a black, it's a satin black. And I have a small brush here. And so we'll start with the nose of the car. Now, we have the hood seam that goes around in all these different vents. Now, if you've ever looked at a car that has been in a long race, you'll notice that all the body panels and stuff have a little bit of grime all around the sides. So what we're going to do is our first part of this is we're going to start with that. We're going to start with all our different edges. And with a lot of different, with painting process, what I like to do is start from the inside and work myself out, because we're working in layers. So we want to start with the furthest down in our layers, which is obviously our body seams. So we'll go ahead and work all our body seams, all our vents, and then we'll take it to the next step as far as with the airbrush process. But first off is with a bunch of brush work. So the other nice thing about an acrylic is that I'm going to go ahead and put this all over the car. Now, if this was an enamel or a lacquer or something along those lines, and you come down to the tempos or the decals that were put on here, some of those chemicals will eat into your decal work, okay? Or if the car has had a clear coat on it, it could actually bite into that. So this is a lot, it's not as aggressive, but once it does cure, it's, it's good stuff. It sticks right on there. So what I've got here is a little bit of black, and we're just going to go ahead and just start putting this right into all of our different seams. So I'm just working it down in here. And just work it down through. And just kind of keep in mind of all the different little vents and whatnot. And you'll notice I'm going to work just one kind of area at a time, okay? I'm not going to go and cover the whole entire car because this stuff does dry. And the longer it dries, the harder it is to get off. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on here, let it set up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and clean it off. But I want to make sure that all my different little edges and everything are all covered. So let's do that, and let's get down into these vents down in front and all these different little seams. And we'll get some of this paint down in here. Okay. So there we go. We'll go ahead and let that sit for a minute or two. And then we'll go ahead and start cleaning it off. All right, so now what we need to do is go ahead and start cleaning off this stuff. Now, Q-tip or a little rag. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and work this. And keep in mind where our lines are at, because if you do scrub down into the line, what you're going to do is you're going to pull this acrylic paint right off of it. So what we're going to do is just work this around and get this cleaned off, leaving the acrylic in those seams. So if we go like so, and I'll just keep on working this, and when we come back, we'll see where it's at. But you can see already how it's already just starting to leave a little bit of a transfer into those areas. So, okay. Let me keep on doing this. We come back. Okay, so I went ahead and I have the front all cleaned up. You can see in there where the black is still in those body seams. Now, what we're going to do is, you can see around here in the front, and we got a little bit odds and ends here and there, but you know, it's not going to be too big of a deal because we're going to come back and grime this out even more. You want to get a good majority of it off though. Now, next thing is we have vents. So what I like to do with like the fender vents is I'm just going to go ahead and paint right into these. So what that's going to do is, being these vents go right into the wheel well, throughout a race, what happens is you get a rubber transfer and grime into these vents. So you make sure that you get your color, your black, right down into these vents. So once it gets into there, we'll go ahead and we'll just wipe it off to this top. And they start to pop out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just keep on going through the car, and we come back, we'll see how this one is, and then we still have that Rsr Porsche to do. So we can see now that I went ahead and got all my edges done, so all the body panels as far as the black and everything. And since I still have the brush out, there's a couple other things we want to go ahead and take care of at this point in time. One of the things is that next to our tires here, our wheel wells, we want to go ahead and get that black down inside these wheel wells, okay? And that's for a couple different reasons. One is when we go to spray it, we don't have to concentrate in those areas to get that covered with black, okay? That'll save as far as getting any overspray inside the body itself. So if we can go ahead and alleviate some of that problem now, you're better off. So make sure you get around your wheel wells where your black is going to be. So we can see down in these areas where I've gotten black. Now, if we turn this over again for the underside, on the back side of the wheel wells, you can see that I went ahead and kind of painted that out as well. And all I'm doing is just with this small brush is putting it in and just dragging it out, okay? So just dragging it out, let those bristles come out and do a streaking effect across the underside of the body. And here's where our exhaust is at, so that's gonna, you know, that's gonna be blackened as well. So just go ahead and take care of those areas, get that darkened down, and streak it out across there. And then plus with the brush, it gives that, you know, the effect that we can't quite get with an airbrush. So we're going to utilize those bristles of that brush to add that texture down in this area. And make sure that you go with the direction of it. You don't want to go sideways. You want to go with the direction so that it looks like it's flowing with the car. So when it comes down in here, now I have the black in the inside, but I am going to take a little bit of this and I'm going to pull it just off the edge. Just lightly. It doesn't have to be perfect, because through the grime and everything else, it's just gonna do its thing. So just kind of pull it back, and it's almost like a dry brush that we're doing here, and just so it just tints it a little bit, okay? Because when we do hit it with the airbrush, it's going to stick to those areas faster than it's going to stick to, per se, the unpainted plastic. So just on that, again, up here on these vents, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take a little bit of paint, and I'm just going to draw it back into it. And it's just going to kind of give the effect that it's kind of pulling back into these vents a little bit. A little bit of staining on it. I'll do this other vent here. So we're just coming right off the vent. We're just pulling it down a little bit. Now there's a seam between these two vents. Okay, so we're going to utilize that. So we're going to keep it on that side, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to pull some over on the other side as well. That way it has a little bit of a break in between the two. Okay, so there we go. We got a little bit of streaking down on our wheel wells, streaking in the back, a little bit of streaking there. Still got to do these wheel wells. So we'll just bring it back through. Just lightly hit it. And each side doesn't have to look exactly like the other side, because in real life it doesn't look like the other side either. They're similar, but each side is going to be a little bit unique to the other. So you don't want it to look identical to the other side per se. If you get it to look identical, actually it kind of takes away from the realism of what you're going after. So, all right, so that looks, it's getting there, huh? And I might actually put some just right at the top of these headlights, just a little bit. Not much, just a little bit to give it some, maybe drag a little bit on the headlight itself. Down that fan. Just a little bit. Okay, so there's that guy. I think he's about ready for the airbrush. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and grab the Rothmans, and we're going to go ahead and do that one as well. So we come back. Take a look at our 917. Start on this. So we went ahead, and I've got the black along our wheel wells on both the fender and on the quarter, and we've smeared it out. Our body panels have the black outline all through that. We've got our windshield mast. We have the headlights with the smears coming off, and also on the fender vents with a little bit of smears on that. I also went ahead and put a little bit of weathering on the fan assembly on the top of the motor. A lot of times cars will have different little items on it, and it's wise just to kind of go through it, take a look, make sure you've got everything covered. So little things like this, like the fan. Well, the fan was all like brand new looking, and that's going to really stand out if we just left it alone. So made sure that we went ahead and, you know, tarnished it out a little bit. So we have all that. We have on the underside where we've smeared out the black on the back fender wells. And the last thing we need to do with this now is to go ahead and grab our Sharpie, and we need to go ahead and get some little dots of some rubber BBs. So it's really easy to do. I just go ahead and use a fine tip Sharpie permanent marker, and what we want to do is just go ahead and hit it ever so lightly. And what this will duplicate is just the little bit of rubber that kicks up onto the track when it's following another car, in those little BBs of rubber that are going to be sticking to the car. So it's not something that's real prominent. You just want to kind of do it here and there, and also depending on how of the weathering job, if it's a heavy or if it's a light or if it's a medium, well, depends on how much you want to put on it. So with this being a medium, we're going to go a little bit heavy in certain areas. We're going to have this guy that, you know, he followed a few cars around the track, and we're just going to come back and hit it here and there, and there's really no pattern to it. When you do it, you make sure that you aren't going down or up or anything. So we want to go in the direction that the car's going again. So if we put it on here, make sure when you release, you're bringing it back. You're bringing it back towards the back of the car, so that if it does make a little bit of a line, it's going to look like maybe a little bit of a smear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and keep on adding these guys throughout. When we come back, we'll see where that's at, and then we'll start on our Rothmans Porsche. Well, now our permanent marker to create our rubber BBs is complete. So what I've done is went ahead and made little marks all over the nose of this thing. You can see them all through the nose, a little bit on the hood. You don't want to forget about your windshield area that you don't have masked off. Go ahead and put some on there, a little bit on the sides, across the headlights, especially if your headlights are ones that actually light up. You want to make sure that you do all these little items, all these little details. You want to make sure you're thorough and go all the way through the car. So with this one, these do not light up, but even so, I still want to put some on the lenses themselves. So went ahead and did that. We've got it through, and you can see it's more collected in the front, and it kind of disperses as it goes across the back, much like a real car. So on the sides, again, we went ahead and concentrated on the rocker panels down here on the back side of the fender and on the quarter, and again on the underside down in here. So now at this point, this guy's done. Now, one of the things I kind of want to go over is with the water-based paint is that if you're going through your process and you're looking at it, you're going, man, I don't think I'm doing this right or whatnot, you can always stop and grab a wet washcloth or whatnot and wipe this body completely clean. As long as you don't wait too long where the paint cures, because once it cures, it's going to bite in and you're not going to be able to get it off. So if that little bit of assurance that if you do start on something like this, there is that point where you can turn around and wipe it off. Okay, it's not, you don't have just one shot to get it right. So you know, if you did some stuff and you're like, oh, I don't like the way that looks, grab a wet washcloth, wipe it all down, start all over again. Now with these permanent marker, when it's on smooth plastic, if it is not coated, it'll come right off. But once we go and we airbrush this body out, it's going to seal everything down. So these little marks that we made with a permanent marker are going to be locked in underneath the overspray that's going to be sprayed on the car. So at this point in time, this guy now is officially done. And now we can set this down and we're going to start on this Rothmans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mask up my windshield. I'm going to mask up my chassis. When we come back, we'll start the process on it. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and start on this 962. So I went ahead and I have my front windshield all masked. And I went ahead and taped up my chassis. Now, this is a slotted, and slotted chassis are, well, they're easier to tape off. They usually have a real hard, pronounced area. So slotteds are, they make it a little bit nicer that way. Now, again, I went ahead and covered right over onto this area of the tire. So, and that's just to help with the overspray. So at this point, what we need to do is go ahead and start doing our black on all our body lines. So same way that we did the 917 is the way we're going to go ahead and attack this. So what I will do is just go ahead and grab some of this black. And again, we're using the same stuff. It's that satin black. And one of the reasons why I use satin and per se maybe not gloss or not flat when it comes to black, because I'm trying to mimic oil. I'm trying to mimic tire, you know, the greasiness of a tire. And those components are not flat. They have a little bit of a sheen to them, but they're not gloss. So a semi or a satin actually works really good that way. So and again, like with the other one, we're just going to attack right into this, and we're going to go after our body lines with this and let it set up a little bit and clean it all off. Now this, since we have this two-tone, we have a darker color down here on the side and we have the white up on top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attack the top first, all the white, and then I'm going to go ahead and start attacking my sides. And why I'm going to do that is because when it comes off onto the side panel from the white to the dark, from the into the red and the gold and the blue, I can use this line as a reference line if I'm having a hard time trying to find it down here on the side. So it's just a little trick that seems to help. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and keep on putting my black in, and when we come back, we'll have this guy, all the body, outlined out. Okay, so at this point, I went ahead and I have all of our body lines all outlined with the black. And now what we need to do is come back and start working some of these little areas, like around the wheel wells, our vents, our headlights, and just do a little bit more brush work on those areas to get kind of that streaking effect. So when it comes to, say, our vents on the side here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, let's see here. I don't want a bunch of material. I just want to just a little bit, so we can just kind of give a little bit of a grime coming up off the top of these vents. So we just want to kind of streak it down through. And just a little bit down in here. So I'm just going to work it like so, and just a light touch. Bring it down. Same thing back in here. We're gonna have some of that grime coming out of these vents over here. I got that one vent darker than the other. We could leave it that way if we wanted one bank in the motor to run a little bit more rich, but I kind of want to make it look a little bit more uniform. So we'll just kind of hit this down in here and bring it up like so. Okay, so we have that, we have this vent, we got these. Now our headlights up in the front. And just go off of here. Just drag some back like so. And you can see on the white how it shows up a lot more than it did on the 917. And that's another thing to keep in mind, is the color that you're doing. Lighter colors are going to show a lot more. So it's going to be a matter of using your own preference on that. So here in the front, and you notice when I'm doing this, I'm still working with the direction of the car. So when it comes down here in the front, I'm just gonna pull my brush back, and that's gonna create those streaks across the front. And we want to go right onto that blue as well. Even though it's a dark color, we still don't want to leave it out. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make everything uniform and look right. So now when it comes down to the sides in here with our wheel wells, we're going to load that up on the edge, and then we're going to bring it back right over the top of everything, and kind of go over the top of this number. And being that a lot of times it's going to be grimier on the bottom than it is on top, make sure you work from your bottom and work it up. And I'll kind of blend it out. So from the bottom, and blend it up through. Okay, so I need to keep on going there, but this has white wheels. So with white wheels, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cover them up, get them all in there. Then we're going to grab our Q-tip. We're just going to clean it all up. Just kind of give it a little bit of a scrub. And what this is going to do is going to get that black down into all those little crevices. And just kind of gives it a little bit more of a worn look. So you can see from this one here where we have black down here on the edge, where this one is completely pristine. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up those areas, and we come back, we'll be ready to go ahead and do our Sharpie trick, and I think we're about ready to start airbrushing. Okay, so at this point we have all our brushing done. I went ahead and did a little bit more here in the front, a little bit more in certain other areas. Just started to look at it a little bit more and thought, I could use a little bit heavier. And again, down here on the rockers. Now, you got to remember that your rubber buildup is going to be down low and it's going to come up. So with the brush work, what we're doing is we're setting kind of a foundation down. So when we do airbrush it, it won't take much, and it will stick to it, and you'll get that effect just like that. So went ahead and got that, did a little bit on the rear spoiler or the rear wing, and then we didn't want to forget about the back right down in here. And being that it's a dark blue, it's hard to see. But again, by doing this, what we're doing is not only toning down the color, but we're creating a texture on it as well, which might be kind of hard to see on the video. But when you're actually brushing, it's actually putting a little bit of texture in there as far as the brush strokes. So at this point in time, now what we need to do is go ahead and get back to our Sharpie, and we're gonna go ahead and start doing, you know, those little dots that we did on the 917. So we're just gonna come in and start giving this guy a little bit of dots here. Looks like this thing could use some help. So let's see here. There we go. And we'll just go ahead and pepper this thing with just little dots. And that'll be those rubber transfer, those BBs. So I'm going to do it the same way that I did with the 917. And we're just going to work it even over the dark areas. I'm going to go ahead and put it in there too. Just the mere fact that we have numbers here, we have some lettering in those little bit of dots. You know, when you're really starting to stare at your car, you're going to see them. So that's just adds a little bit of coolness to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when we get done, it's time to airbrush. All right, so now I'm ready to go ahead and do a little bit of airbrushing. So what I like to do is go ahead and start with my darker color first and then work up to my lighter color. So being that we're trying to mimic some of the grime and whatnot, I'm going to use the same black that I used on the body itself with all the work that we've done up to this point. I'm going to use that same black, and it's just reduced out so I can run it through my airbrush. And I'm just using a regular gravity feed airbrush and just have a little bit of pump to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start low, and I'm just going to work my low angles, okay? And I'm going to try to keep my overspray to a very minimum and just kind of keep it down low, okay? I don't want really my dark color going over the top. I want to save that for the lighter color when I do it up on top. So what we'll do is start with this, and I'll go ahead and turn on the compressor, and using low pressure, and we're just going to go ahead and just hit it lightly. And I like to have this reduced out for the fact that it's not going to cover as fast. And you can control the density of your color a lot better. So we're just going to kind of work it down through, kind of working from the front back. And since we are doing a medium, we don't want to get it too dark. Just kind of keep it like that. And flow it up a little bit. And the nice thing with an airbrush, since you're hitting it with the air, the wind going through it, it's going to naturally kind of land exactly where it needs to be. It's going to follow the flow of the car, and it's going to go ahead and get it right where you need it. So at this point, I'm just about done with my black. I want a little bit more up here in front. Lightly hitting it here, kind of come off on the sides. Okay. Go ahead and hit this in the back, on the underside. Okay, so we'll go ahead and let that sit for a little bit, let it dry, and then we'll come back with our lighter color. All right, so now we're ready for the lighter color, and what I'm using is the same material, and it's a satin again, and this is called Bittersweet, and it's just kind of a darker cocoa brown, kind of a almost like a burnt umber. And what I'm going to do with this is just now go ahead and go over the areas that we already did. And I'm going to go ahead and put a coat over the whole entire car. And what this will do is going to lock in all the other stuff that we've done on the car. And plus, it'll just give it that last little bit of grime that we need to polish this thing off. So we'll go ahead and clear this out a little bit. And we'll just kind of hit this again, kind of much like the same way that we did before. I'm working from my low angles. And I'm coming up. Now I'm coming up a little bit further than what I did with the black. So we're just kind of hitting this down through, fanning it through. And now we're coming up. So we want to get that windshield nice and grimy. Kind of hit over the top of it here. Make sure you get all the little nooks and crannies there. We'll let that sit for just a little bit. And then what I want to do is just put one last little spray onto it. So let's let that just kind of calm down. And we come back, should have it all complete. Okay, so I went ahead and hit it one last little time and she's complete. Now all we need to do is just let this guy sit, dry up the rest of the way and cure, and it's ready to attack the track. So next up is let's go ahead and let's spray out that Rothman's Porsche. Go ahead and start on this Porsche. Again, I'm going to go ahead and start with the black color first and then the brown second. And one of the reasons why you do that is if you put on the light color first and then you go with your darker color is going to cover the light color. So same way that when I used to airbrush in the automotive world and stuff, you always want to start with your darker color and then work to your lighter color. So we're going to go ahead and start with our black. And again, we're going to do it the same way we did before as far as working our lower angles. And then we'll go ahead and come back with that brown. So we'll go ahead and hit down low. With our black here. This side over here. And we'll come back to the other side here. don't want to forget about the back underneath. So let's go ahead and let's hit that now. Okay. We'll go once more over everything, and I think we'll be ready for our brown. This blue covers really quick, so. All right, so now we just gotta let that sit, and we'll come back with our brown. Okay, now we're ready for our brown. So I went ahead and I got it all loaded up in the brush. And same technique, gonna hit down low. Work my way up. And we're gonna come over the top here. A lot of times if you go from a distance when you spray it, it'll create a little bit more of a grainy effect on the surface. So if you come back away from it, it'll help that out. Okay. There it is, and it's all sealed in. We just gotta let it dry and we can unmask it. And it's about ready to go ripping. Okay, so we're all done weathering them. And last things last, let's go take a look at them. So they're down here on the layout. And you know, it just adds that little extra bit of realism to everything. You know, you can see the streaks on through, how it kind of looks like they've been running around the track for a while. You know, you can see the little BBs as far as the rubber BBs that are on the front and on the body itself. We come over here on the 917, how the streaks come off the headlights. You know, we'll turn these off to the side, actually bring it up like so. You know, it just adds that little extra oomph, you know. Kind of a cool concept, you know. Not everyone likes weathering, but I think weathering is kind of cool. You know, and if you have one of those cars that maybe it fell off the track and it scratched it and it kind of damaged one of your cars, weathering might be the answer to give that car a little bit more of a resurrection, you know, as far as your interest in it again. So there's always that concept too. But there we go. We got 2 of them weathered, and all right. So if you like this video, like it, subscribe to my channel, share it with others. And remember, we have that little thing called Boone Slot Car Garage over on Facebook. If you hit the little caption up at the top, it can bring you over there. And hey, it'd be kind of cool. I can see your stuff, you can see some of my stuff I'm working on, and yeah, it's a cool thing. So if you like this again, like it, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell, and I'll see you guys later.